All right, I will call to order this committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, May 17th, meeting number 229. And in honor of the Lewa Tool, the Village of Pemberton is grateful that we are meeting here today within the unceded territory of the Lewa Nation. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. The recorded meeting will be available on the village's website following the meeting. Any amendments to the agenda? None. Motion approved. Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of minutes from committee of the whole 228 from Tuesday, April 26th. Moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us right up to our delegation. Admit some guests. Oh, there we go. Some folks join us. So our delegation today is from Woodfibre LNG. It's a project update. And joining us, we have Julie Diamond, Senior Management, Government Relations, Laura Prosco, Stakeholder Relations Advisor, and Selena Bassi. And I apologize to all of you if I got your names wrong, VP and External Government Relations. Thank you very much for joining us today. And when you're all set up, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Mayor and Council for having us for this update presentation. I do know that these materials were circulated in advance of the meeting, so very happy to go quickly through the presentation and then leave the bulk of our time for discussion or any questions that you may have. So as mentioned, I'm Selena, and we're very pleased to be able to give you a project update today. Really, the purpose of this update is because many of you may be familiar with the Woodfibre LNG project, but it's been something that's been in sort of the planned stages for a number of years since around 2014. And the project is getting to a ramp up phase. And so we think it's very important that communities that are in the region are aware of the project that will be located in the community close to Squamish, and as well have an opportunity to understand what that's all about and how it fits into your own community vision, as well as sort of the overall context of what's going on around us in the world and in the energy sector. So you can go to the next slide. That's just a brief agenda. So our company is Woodfibre LNG. We're part of a larger company that's known as Pacific Energy. And I just wanted to highlight that the way that our company operates is really with a strong focus on community, country, climate, customer, and we are increasingly enhancing our sustainability approach, both internal to our company and how we want to be contributing to community partnerships and community vision. And so we look forward to learning over time more about the vision and goals of your community as well. We are a significant investment as far as projects go, so we will be providing a socioeconomic impact to the region, and that's something that we'll look forward to doing in a way that maximizes benefits while minimizing any impacts and pressures on communities. I know that the region is facing pressures on things like housing, affordability, and so our goal is to be supportive and promote benefits while limiting impacts. We also have a role to play in the global energy security conversation. We are a relatively small production capacity in terms of liquefied natural gas, but those of you that are familiar with the sector will know that we would be the second project in Canada, and LNG is becoming a more increasingly prevalent part of the energy transition conversation as we're continuing to see, immense pressure on prices at pumps and that scenario unfolding in the world around us. So we look forward to conversations with citizens and councillors and elected officials to see how that fits in with your goals and sustainability visions as well. We have a strong commitment to that goodwill through community donations, sponsorship, and partner initiatives. And we'll talk a little bit more about that presentation as well. Our commitment to Indigenous reconciliation is really a part of what guides our company and everything that we do. You may be aware that we have a very strong partnership with the Squamish Nation. Squamish Nation is actually an environmental regulator on our project, which is a unique value proposition, and it creates an opportunity for us to ensure that we are upholding our commitments under an environmental assessment agreement that's gone through the Squamish Nation. For folks that are interested in these kinds of things, of course, we have also gone through the rigorous BC environmental assessment process and federal decision process as well. One of the things that we're really excited about is that our facility would be the second eDrive facility in North America, meaning that we are able to produce LNG at a much lower carbon emissions intensity than traditionally powered facilities. And so this is something that is really central to our sustainability vision and our commitments to climate, and it respects the ethos and vision of the Sea to Sky region as well, being very committed to sustainability. So our emissions profile from the project is low, and we are constantly looking at ways that we can have further reductions in our operations. And again, just highlighting on the right there that we are able to credibly say that we would be the lowest emissions LNG facility in the world when operational. And I guess I just mentioned that that's part of our kind of entire vision around sustainability. So as the project increases and continues to ramp up, you'll see things like us looking at using, more sustainability efforts, electric vehicles, those types of things, just to make sure that we're being as committed to that as possible. In terms of our relationship with the Squamish, as mentioned, in addition to them being a regulator, we also have an impact benefit agreement, and that creates opportunities for the nation to benefit from procurement and employment opportunities, as well as other training, culture, partnership opportunities there. Of course, the conversation around Indigenous reconciliation is also a very fast-moving space, and I think British Columbia has made a lot of progress in this regard. And so, of course, we'll continue to look at any other opportunities with the nation as well. So you can go forward. In terms of workforce development, this project will support about 700 jobs during our peak construction. And in the long term, it would be 100 stable jobs located in the region. Our hiring priority is Squamish Nation, local area, followed by BC, broadly in Canada. And we are developing a diversity and equity inclusion and strategy to ensure that women, BIPOC, and other underrepresented groups are really able to benefit from this opportunity. We're strong believers that major projects have a responsibility to contribute to not only the community, but also leave a lasting positive impact on the workforce, create those opportunities that can help people along where they're needing to go. And we're really excited to be talking to local governments and getting out there and socializing our projects, making sure people know how to access us if you have questions or want to understand anything better. We also work very closely with the BC government and the federal government. Already talked a lot about Squamish. I should mention we also have a strong working relationship with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. That's a pretty important part for us.
You've gotten a little bit muffled on us here. The last minute or so have been really hard to understand. I don't know if your mic is shifted.
How about now?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was just mentioning here that we also have a good working relationship with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, which just wanted to mention that here as well. You can see the slides, I hope, so that most of the information is on the slides. Okay, is it still clear or should I do something different?
No, you're great, thanks.
Okay, so what's going on in the project now? We issued notice to proceed to McDermott International, who is our engineering, procurement, fabrication, construction. They'll be doing our EPC work for us, and that's a significant contract. And so notice to proceed to McDermott is really signaling the project is moving ahead. And right now we are in the pre-construction phase. There will be pre-construction works beginning on site very soon, and that's in preparation for major construction to start in 2023. I think that's kind of all I wanted to say about that. One thing that I will mention here is that a big focus for us over the course of the next year as we prepare to begin construction is a variety of environmental and socioeconomic management plans that we'll be developing, and we'll have consultation with communities and stakeholders on those plans. And those again are really about how we mitigate impacts of the project and focus on advancing benefits. One thing that we're also really excited about is looking at how we can be a part of the net zero economy and accelerating a pathway to net zero. We're all low emissions, but we would like to be definitely aligned with the visions that various levels of government have around net zero. So something we're really actively working on right now. You can go forward. Yeah, I mean, this is some more detail about some of the pre-construction works and site remediation that's occurring. Many of you being located in the nearby region, you may be aware that this is a former heavy industrial site. And so there's been a significant amount of investment already in making sure that we are cleaning up that site, improving the environmental impacts associated with the site. And just this is some of the activities for those that have an interest. You can go forward. Here is some of the work that we're doing directly in the community of Squamish. So we have a community donations and sponsorship program looking to really create that positive impact in the community with things like sports teams and First Nations groups. And we have a call for proposals currently open for that. And again, looking at doing this consultation on the variety of pieces that may be important to the community and stakeholders. You can go forward. And that is our brief presentation, and very happy to answer any questions or address anything that may have piqued your interest.
Thank you so much. Open for questions. Matt?
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. What are you looking at for completion date, and what kind of quantity of product will you be shipping after that?
Sure. So we intend for the first shipment of cargo to be in 2027, although, you know, anything earlier than that could be possible, but at this time, 2027 is the target. And the volume that will be produced and shipped is 2.1 million tons per annum of LNG.
So if I might follow up, what kind of shipping would that require? Because that was one of the concerns of people along Britannia Beach down to Horseshoe Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there would be one LNG carrier move through that area approximately every 10 days. And those LNG carriers are used around the world, and they are safe, efficient, and reliable. We're going through a process right now with the federal government called Turnpole, and that is around the marine shipping. So we'd be very happy to provide you more information on that process and address any questions in more detail in follow-up. But I'd want to get our marine folks involved just to make sure I get you all of the relevant and right information. But in terms of, it is a large carrier that would be coming site side, and then it would move exactly as you say out through that routing once every 10 days or so.
Thank you very much.
I got a couple questions for you. Well, what are you showed the employment numbers there. What are the housing considerations for your workforce?
Sure. So absolutely recognizing the immense pressures that are on housing in the region. The plan for our construction workforce is to be housed in what's called a flotel. So that's really like exactly as it sounds, floating hotel accommodations for workforce, which would be located site side So there would be very limited sort of impact on affordability or services in the community. It would all be self-contained at site. And then we do have one apartment facility located in Squamish that is under lease, and some of our folks live there now. And so that would also be used for some housing purposes. But the intention is to not at all be competitive with any other residential needs in the community.
Thank you. That partially answers my next question, but even with that flotel, there will still be a number of folks in Squamish and using Squamish services, and there's the social impact. And you spoke a little bit about it in your presentation, but can you give us a little more detail in terms of how you manage that locally? Again, the extra impact on their services and most of the social impact is what I'm considering.
Yes, so we have a really comprehensive management plan that will address that. So that's called the Community Services Infrastructure Management Plan, or affectionately known in our company as the CSIMP, and that's typical of large projects. So in terms of how we're addressing that, operationally, it's going to be all contained in that plan, and there will be a series of ongoing community consultations with that plan. But practically, we'll be taking every effort, and it's an active and live conversation with the District of Squamish, as you can imagine, to ensure that that is not the case, and that those that are living on the flotel, if they need to access services in the community, it wouldn't be those critical services that would compete with citizens. It would more be in the sort of retail or commercial space to provide small business benefits, but they wouldn't need to kind of take away from doctors and other critical services in the community. They would be able to have most of that addressed in that self-contained environment.
Right. Thank you. The last question for me, with regards to the community sponsorships and donations, is that something that the Village Pemberton would be eligible for? What does that look like?
Laura, do you want to speak to the program a little bit?
I think Laura's having microphone trouble, so I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah, the intake is open right now. We did have some inquiries from stakeholders within the village, and so the answer is yes, that Pemberton is eligible for the community sponsorship program, and we're excited to have interest from the community. So yes, please encourage nonprofits and charities to apply.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Noble.
What will happen with sewage produced by the flotel?
I would need to get back to you with the technical answer on that, but my understanding at sort of a strategic level is, again, that would be self-contained site side. There's a plan in place for that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor.
What would the net zero pathway entail?
Sure. So that would involve essentially looking at the low emissions that we do have. So again, our project being an e-drive facility will have an emissions footprint of around 68,000 CO2 tons per annum. And so that's like about 1/10 of a typical facility. But what we would look to do with that existing amount is probably look at things that are out there like credible offset programs and further avoidance techniques. And we'll look to commit to that in a form of a plan. So we're hopeful that we can look at Indigenous partnerships as part of that plan as well.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for joining us today and giving us the update. It's much appreciated. And we'll talk again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay. You want that receipt?
Sure.
Okay, motion to receive the report, please. Councillor Antonelli, second by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're on to number 5, which is the Sea to Sky Community Services Affordable Housing Project. Table, please, Mark. Welcome. This presentation, and any other staff or anybody joining us on Zoom, or we get to move along? We're good. I'll turn it over to you when you're all set.
Ryan?
Yeah.
He's back.
All right, thanks for having me. I'm Mark Barshestis, the planning consultant for the village. Nice to meet you all. And today we're going to talk about the Harrow Road Affordable Housing Project. So the whole purpose is to do a high-level analysis for the affordable housing project at Harrow Road and Highway 99, and recommend that committee provides direction and recommend that committee consider revision to the council meeting schedule. So the proposed application is on the subject property at Harrow Road and Portage Road or Highway 99. The OCP designation is Gateway, and the current zone for the property is commercial tourism. I'd like to bring to light that currently under the commercial tourism zone, you can already permit like a gas station and a hotel and a motel. The DP area is number 7 Gateway Development. The existing use is vacant land. And the adjacent uses around the proposed site, we have the Glen neighborhood just to the north, to the east, agricultural, to the south, commercial and hotel, the Pemberton Valley Lodge, and to the west, a mixture of residential and commercial. Here's a Google Street View of the existing site. Absolutely vacant, except for there is vegetation on it. Now, the application itself, it's for a 5-story mixed-use building. The first floor is going to be strictly commercial, and it's going to be the future home of the Sea to Sky Community Services. It's around 836 square meters of commercial area. Floors 2 to 5, there are 63 affordable residential units ranging from 1 to 3 bedroom, and this will be secured with a housing agreement. BC Housing is a main partner for this, and as I said, like the proposed height is 5 stories, so roughly 19 meters, and architectural style is modern contemporary. Within the application, there is a variety of reports such as the tree management plan, site servicing plan, geotech, energy step code. Those are all attached to the report to the committee of the whole. Here's some renderings of the proposed development. As you can see, looking south towards Mount Currie, along Harrow Road, looking west towards downtown, and then the front entrance as well. For the material palette, it's mostly brick and lap siding and cement. And really the purpose of these materials is for like the durability, especially with our type of climate here in Pemberton. So what needs to occur legislatively is the zoning bylaw amendment. And I want to make it clear that, so we have the existing zone, which is commercial tourism, and we're not amending that zone. We are creating a new comprehensive development zone, or like a CD zone. And these CD zones are kind of like one of a kind or custom zones. This is standard practice in the village of Pemberton, so there's nothing new here. If that zoning bylaw amendment were to be approved, then we could go to the major development permit. And the big thing with that major development permit, it's really trying to meet the objectives of DPA number 7, the gateway development. So for example, it should create a strong sense of arrival to the Pemberton community through that natural landscape or built-in gateway elements. So that's what we'd be looking at for that DP. The applicant has asked the village to run these applications concurrently, which the village is doing. But again, I want to make it clear that that zoning bylaw amendment has to be approved first before that DP. So for the policy, the subject lands are within the urban growth boundary, and that gives us mandate to look at that. For the OCP, it is under that gateway land use designation, and that gateway does allow residential and commercial, so there's no need for an OCP amendment. And then under the OCP housing policies, section 5.9.1, the application meets all of them except for the second one, which is talks about ownership, where this is a rental building and not for purchase. So it does meet those housing policies under the OCP. Further, the village has the Affordable Housing Action Plan, which was in 2019. And you can see here, we've got the goals 1 to 4, and the project does align with the goals. I'd like to point out, especially number 3, focus on addressing the housing needs for low to moderate income households. And these units, since they will be with that housing agreement and with BC Housing, they will meet number 3 for sure. Additionally, with the housing action plan, it talks about these 6 population groups that can be affected with housing issues within the village. And one can definitely argue that this application does meet those 6 housing groups. Now, after the applicant-led engagement plus letters from the community and initial view, we do want to bring to the committee to contemplate some issues. One is building height, parking, location, and stormwater management. I do want to give kudos to the applicant because they have done an extensive job prior to submitting the application on public engagement. So that's been absolutely amazing in that regard. And plus they're going to continue to do that throughout the process. So for relation with building height, the proposed height is 19 meters, which it would be the tallest building in Pemberton if approved. To just give you some reference, the C2 zone currently is a maximum of 10.5, but again, we would be rezoning to a comprehensive development district, again, a custom zone. And then also for reference would be the Pemberton Valley Lodge at 13.2 across the highway. There's a great cross section here from the applicant showing that the building is 5 stories on the right and then a typical single family house on the left, which would be typical to like the Glen neighborhood. The applicant has also provided a shadow analysis, and I think it's important to note that at the lowest time of day for the sun, the shadows would still not affect the neighboring parcels to the north in the Glen. For parking, the application is proposing 79 parking stalls, and they did accompany the application with a transportation review from a qualified professional. I would like to read 2 quotes in it. One is the proposed supply would fall 35 spaces short of the total parking requirement. But then given that the development is planned to consist of entirely rental units targeted at low income seniors and families, the bylaw rate would likely result in an oversupply of the parking. And it's also important to note that the SSCS programs, such as the Better Home program, has like these transportation services for their community. And since they'll be one of the tenants in the building, they'll be able to offer that. Back to location, the first or the darker circle represents a 5-minute walk around 400 meters. The second circle is a 10-minute walk around 800 meters. So as one can see, you can easily access commercial, the rec center, the elementary school in 10 minutes. But it is kind of within the average person's walking distance to the high school and the health center and downtown. As for stormwater management and flood control level, the building is within the floodplain, but the applicant has put together a stormwater management plan from a civil consultant. And that design shows that all the water will be retained on site and not being directed to the neighboring properties. So that's kind of mitigating that risk at all. The second part is the application shows that all the commercial units will be on the first floor and no residential units on the first floor. All the residential are on 2+, and that is standard practice for the village of Pemberton. I'd like to hand it over to Sheena to just talk about the timeline and process.
So one of the things we wanted to just flag with the committee of the whole, thank you, Mark, is that currently with our current meeting schedule, we do have a bit of a tight timeline. Traditionally, council will have a quiet period or a blackout period, sort of 8 weeks prior to a general election, where we don't have where we don't necessarily hold public hearings and public information sessions and that kind of thing to respect the election process, because there will be candidates who won't have the same opportunity for to speak to an issue as, say, a council member who just decides to run again. So that's something that we have traditionally done. Most municipalities do it. It's not set in stone. There's no policy about it, but it's just something we have traditionally carried on. So if we consider that the election is October 15th, the timeline that we've got right now with the council meeting September 20th, we would see first, under this current timeline, we potentially see first and second reading of the zoning amendment on September 20th, with public hearing held on October 4th, and the first advanced voting opportunity is October 5th. And then third reading would be October 18th, which is a few days after the election, which is October 15th. And then the bylaw would be referred out to MOTI. And depending on what their turnaround time is, the bylaw could be back for adoption somewhere around November, December, which would mean the new council is considering it for adoption, having not been through the beginning process. Option 2, which we wanted to put on the table because we know that there are timelines that Sea to Sky Community Services is also trying to reach, would be to look at amending the regular council meeting schedule and adding on a regular meeting either August 30th or September 6th, which would allow first and second reading to come forward on that date, with public hearing scheduled for September 20th. And then third reading potentially October 4th, depending on how the timelines run out. Adoption would still probably be somewhere around the November, December timeframe, only because we don't know what MOTI's turnaround would be. And it's unlikely that between October 4th and October 18th, they would be able to turn around their approvals for that period of time. Once the bylaw is adopted, then, and probably, I think the way we would approach it at this point is that the date that the bylaw is being adopted would be the date that council considers a development permit, because they are running concurrently. So we just wanted the committee to be aware of that, those two sort of scenarios for scheduling, and for your consideration. And I'll turn it back to Mark.
Just if I may, just before I go ahead, we've got basically part of May, all of June and July. Is there any reason why it can't be brought forward prior to that?
We, I think I would have to refer to Mark.
So we've sent out the referrals to the agencies, and then we still have to, for the zoning bylaw amendment, go to the ALUC, and then for the DP, go to the Advisory Design Review Commission as well. So that just takes time.
I guess the reason I'm asking that is 2.5 months, and then there's still all of August. So I'm trying to understand why we're looking at September, October, when I'd love to see it in July or August.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit more.
Sorry.
So basically, as Mark mentioned, the referrals were sent out May 3rd. We give referral agencies about 1 month to respond. So that's going to say sort of early June. Now, typically everyone's busy, so often those responses don't arrive in time. So we are chasing important parties down for their response. We debated this quite a bit, trying to get a feel for what's the right approach with this particular application. And we made a decision that to give the ALUC and the ADRC proper information before they make their recommendation to council. They should have those referral comments back. So if we kind of just wanted to provide enough cushion there that we could get all the referral comments in place, schedule those meetings, and then have those recommendations in time for council. And so looking at the timeline, it did not seem feasible to make that last meeting in July.
Further, the challenge we also talked about is holding public hearings over the summer months when people are away. And that is something that traditionally we try to avoid, is having those kind of having public hearings on something that is an important community initiative over the summer months when people are away and not able to attend. That can impact people's feeling that they were not able to participate in the process. So it's just something that we took into consideration through this process as well.
Mark?
Yep, so alternative options, option one, the committee recommend to council that staff be directed to continue with processing the application and substantially in the form submitted in the application submission, and that's subject to complete and thorough application process. The proposed application be brought to council for consideration of first reading to amending the zoning bylaw. Option two, the committee recommend to council that the zoning bylaw amendment and major development permit proposed not proceed in its current form, and that staff be directed to request an amendment to the proposed application to align it more closely with the OCP development permit areas and the existing and proposed development in the area. And then recommendations, committee provide direction and for the committee to consider revision to council's meeting schedule.
Very much, appreciate it. So just before we carry on, what we're going to do next is we have some representatives from Sea to Sky Community Services. They're going to give a quick presentation as well, and then we'll go to questions. And when we get to questions, if you guys could try to specify who you'd like to answer the questions, be it staff or Sea to Sky Community Services. And once we've flushed out all the questions, we'll remove the Sea to Sky folks from the panel and then get into our comments and debate. So do our questions in order. So we could admit our guests. There you go. We not have a couple more joining us.
Hey, here we go. Here we go.
Oh,
All right.
Peter.
There we are. Thank you very much. I had to do my own work here. I'm on mute. I apologize. Good afternoon, Mayor Richmond and Council. My name is Peter Gordon. I'm here to help represent Sea to Sky Community Services this afternoon, and it is our pleasure to be here to speak with you and answer questions and so on. In the life of this project, this meeting today is an important day. I'll take us back that we were in the depths of the COVID pandemic when Mayor Richmond saw a need for a plan for post-pandemic times, and affordable housing was one of those pillar items. And there was a great need here in Pemberton, as there are in many other communities, for more affordable housing. In response to this, Sea to Sky Community Services felt that they could help, and they engaged in conversations that led us being asked to explore an initiative to build a community-based affordable housing project, the one which we're discussing here today. I'd just like to turn it over now to Jesse Abrams for a minute or two to discuss a little bit about the need for the affordable housing at this time in Pemberton. Jesse.
Thanks, Peter. My name is Jessie Abraham, and I'm the Director of Housing at Sea to Sky Community Services. Further to what Peter just said, I want to touch on the purpose of the application, which I think goes above and beyond what we are proposing in terms of design and building form. So the purpose of the project is to address two critical community issues. So the first is the project addresses the demand for social services, which we know has increased exponentially during the pandemic. Last year, we served over 2,200 individuals, and the numbers continue to go up on average by 8% year over year. Regarding our current social service space, we recently experienced a change in landlord, and the future of our lease is unknown at this time. So we need to relocate not only to meet demand and expand our existing services, but to ensure a future for much needed social service programs and community. And the project addresses a second critical issue. We are in a housing crisis. Pemberton is the fastest growing community in southwestern BC. In the last 5 years, the village grew by 32%. We need to recognize that growth needs to be accommodated with addressing housing needs for vulnerable working populations. We know that rent rates are now unattainable for the average individual or family, In the past 10 years, rents have increased by 74%. So 10 years ago, we were looking at a 2-bedroom costing $1,300 per month. That same 2-bedroom is now rented for almost $2,400 per month. We know that there's a critical lack of affordable housing supply. The Lions Villa is currently the only non-market housing in the village with 30 units. There is some market rental housing, but not enough. Rentals and condos and secondary suites are not considered a stable and secure form of rental housing due to the fact that owners can sell or take the unit back. We hear the community when they voice their concerns. So in 2021, the village conducted a housing options survey. The results read that 93% of respondents believe there is a significant or a very significant lack of affordable housing in Pemberton. 81% definitely or somewhat agree that an apartment building is an appropriate housing solution, and 72% definitely agree or somewhat agree that the village should consider allowing an increase from 3 stories to 4 stories or higher for non-market housing projects. In February this year, we went out to community to hear more. So we received overwhelming support for affordable housing, and not just from renters or those who are precariously housed. Our greatest number of responses, 71%, came from homeowners. And the majority of those recognized the need for affordable housing and the community benefits it would provide. During engagement, we heard that the situation is urgent. We need to cut barriers to housing now. My favorite response that we received that I'd like to share with you, and I think it's one that captures the purpose of the project perfectly, was, and I quote, "Affordable housing will change people's lives. It'll keep our businesses in business. Let's make Pemberton a role model for creating stronger communities." And with that, I'll turn it back to Peter.
Thank you very much, Jesse. And I'd like to take us back now to when we first got started a few years ago and moving forward with this project. And of course, our first task was to find a suitable location. This was not an easy task in Pemberton, given the ALR lands and the mountains. So we sat down and worked very closely with staff and brought out the village map and started to look at potential sites. In our first go around, we identified approximately 18 potential sites. But in a tabletop exercise, we were able to narrow that down to 12 sites. And each of those sites then were rated according to such things as OCP, zoning, servicing, flood potential, traffic issues, and any other potential property specific constraints. I then went out and viewed each of the sites and then reported back. From that, we were able to narrow the list down to 6 remaining sites. I then went out and met with a number of landowners to talk to them about if they were on that list. But in the end, after a lot of consultation, we were only able to come up with 1 site that remained out of the 6, and that's the one we chose on Harrow Road. Happily, in that case, we had a cooperative landowner. He is a native of Pemberton and heads an affordable housing nonprofit society for adults with physical disabilities in the Vancouver area. He expressed a desire to help. And so we were able to negotiate a very fair purchase price, and the property is now under contract. With your council support here at City Hall, we then made an application to BC Housing for a 63-unit development. 73 communities in British Columbia also applied for this funding, but only 14 were approved to go forward given the internal budget restriction at BC Housing. Of the over 13,000 units that were applied for in the 73 communities, only 19% of those units were approved by BC Housing. And Pemberton was fortunate to be one of these. This is no small achievement, especially given we were the only application that also needed funding to purchase the land. That is rare. So in this case, BC Housing will pay 100% of the cost of this project. Again, rare. We are working diligently on design and budget, have been ever since that time. And we are working closely with staff and the community. But for sure, more public consultation will be taking place over the summer months. And we intend to go out and meet more of the town and find out more of what they're thinking about the project. I'll now turn it over to Casey Clerkson, who is the housing development consultant on this project. He will outline our response to some of the concerns that have been identified during the consultation phase. Casey.
Thank you, Peter. Very much appreciated. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today. And Mark, I would like to also thank you for outlining that our proposal did respond to the engagement process that we underwent prior to the application. So as a reminder to Mayor and Council, 2 pre-application public engagement sessions were held by our team, because as Jesse alluded to, we very much want to hear what the public has to say, how they feel, and list and identify some of their concerns. So as Mark alluded to in his presentation previously, some of the concerns that we heard of, and I won't list all of them, but as a way of showing Mayor and Council that we are here to listen, we are here to work with staff, and we are here to work with the community on ensuring that we have the most appropriate proposal forward. One of the concerns that we heard from the immediate neighbors to the north was a concern around the separation between our project and their private properties to the north. So how we responded was that we actually shifted the entire site plan south. We created a larger landscape buffer between the single family homes and our proposed parking area and our proposed project. Another concern that we heard, for example, was would a fire truck be able to access the site? So again, what we looked at and what we illustrated in our application was just that. From a code perspective, we have to ensure that, but we wanted to very much illustrate as part of our package that a fire truck could come onto our site, adequately turn around and exit the site as required. We heard concerns around parking. So we engaged a third-party independent transportation engineer. And that engineer looks at all kinds of things, including your existing bylaws, existing housing provided by Sea to Sky Community Services and other nonprofits. They look at the incomes of the proposed tenants, and they determined independently of an appropriate parking rate for this project. We actually are designed and have provided more parking by 4 stalls than the independent review and the independent engineer is suggesting would be appropriate and accommodating for this project. We heard about stormwater management and concerns around flooding, again, alluded to previously in the presentation. We retain the services of a civil engineer. We've come up with an appropriate site grading and an appropriate stormwater management plan, which includes a detention tank. We hired a geotechnical engineer that would look at a flood construction level, flood hazard assessment, and a geotechnical report itself. And again, addressing some of these needs by appropriate design and appropriate management. And I think it's, one of the loudest pieces that we heard, of course, is around the height. And due to the flood construction level on this particular site, a lot of the questions were, why a 5-story? Why not a 4-story? And I think it's important for Mayor and Council and the public, and we looked at this, we looked at a 4-story project. And due to the flood construction level, we would have to import on this site about 2.75 meters of fill, which would lift the building up, where an exemption would be permitted for the commercial use as proposed. So the ultimate height difference between a proposed 4-story building versus a proposed 5-story building is actually less than 5 feet. It's 4 foot 9 inches. That would be the height difference between a 4 and a 5. So again, I just want to ensure that Mayor and Council are aware that we are engaging the community. We continually want to hear from the community. We appreciate their feedback. And we've even designed community amenities, such as we heard from them, what was really important to them. We heard that a playground for the kids was really important. So we've designed as part of our landscape plan, an outdoor playground for children. We also heard that there was a concern around children and the proximity to Portage Road and the highway. And therefore we ensured that that playground was surrounded by a secured fencing and fenced off area. So I want to ensure the team here listening today that we are listening and we are hoping and wanting to respond accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casey. Much appreciated. I now just want to take a minute, if I may, and address a sensitive matter that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. It speaks to why we are here today. And it's how do we best proceed from here? We, you, and the whole community have a dilemma to face, given we really need the affordable housing on the one hand. But we also understand there are legitimate concerns from our neighbors in regards to the choice of location and scale and height of the building. And those need a lot of consultation, and we can't hurry that process. No one likes a dilemma. It's awkward, it's a bit stressful, but this is our reality, and it's a reality that we cannot control. We don't wish to diminish the importance of those concerns, but we can assure council that throughout this process, we will continue to meaningfully consult with those folks and other members of the community. So what makes this dilemma is the time squeeze that we talked about a little earlier. No one invited this problem, but it is real. We have a very tight and short time frame to achieve our zoning, or we will lose the opportunity to take advantage of the BC Housing funding. It will go to another community. So again, why? Why is it so tight? Why are we seeking your understanding of this situation? I circle back to what I said about that BC Housing is also funding the land purchase. But they will only do so once the land has the appropriate zoning in place. I think that's understandable. So there are two factors that influence the zoning time squeeze. One is contractually, we have a year-end closing date on the land purchase. We have already received one extension from the vendor, and they have indicated that they do not wish to extend it any further. Secondly, there is the summer, the quiet period when people are on holidays, and then the municipal election. And we must have third reading ahead of council closing down for that election, as there will not be sufficient time after the election to schedule a public hearing and third reading, other consultations with other agencies, and then hand it back to BC Housing for processing the funding prior to completion date. And don't forget, we have a little bit of Christmas in the middle there when things shut down as well. So it's very tight. We need to have this public hearing and zoning meeting prior to breaking out for the election. You know, and we've had our internal discussions about bringing this discussion to you. And we do accept that, of course, that the decision you make could go either way, and we honor and respect you with your role here. But we want the third reading to happen in the timeframes that we're outlining, at least to keep the application alive. Because if we know we can't get the zoning on time, we're in a real tight spot ourselves here. So we're seeking your support for the option that allows the zoning application to go forward before you close down for the election. And, you know, we just want to emphasize to you that we're trying to be honest, given the importance that the opportunity for this affordable housing project presents for this community. And we would just want to thank you, because we understand that it's an issue that you will grapple with, understanding we need to hear from folks. The final thing I just wanted to say, though, is that one of the reasons why we're a little bit troubled about the possibility of losing this funding opportunity is because of what I mentioned before, that we were only one of 14 communities out of 73 that received an approval for an application. There is stiff competition for these projects in British Columbia. And we're very concerned if we let it go, of course, the funding will go to another community, but we absolutely cannot predict when another opportunity of this sort would come back to us. So I thank you for this opportunity to be here today on behalf of our team. And we thank you for your understanding and consideration for our application. And at the appropriate time, we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks to all of you. So again, I'll open up for questions at this point, and if you could try to identify whether it's Mark or other staff or Sea to Sky folks that you would like to answer your question. The table's open. I'd like to ask a question. Pardon me?
Do you want to note the Councillor's
Yeah, Councillor Zantes had to go to the school to deal with the family. So hopefully he'll be back shortly.
Okay.
So you'll see how that goes. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this would be to Mark. There's been a lot of question about future concept plans and future expansions, if that is in the works or not. Do we have any indication of that?
This application is just talking about one building.
Okay. The other thing that was talked about, we're looking at retaining a lot of water on site for drainage, is what I just heard Peter say.
Yeah.
Does that also include anything from snow storage?
There is a snow storage area that will be on site.
On site? Okay, the other question that I've been receiving with the parking area, what kind of lighting are we gonna do on the parking area? Because nobody wants to see, so to speak, a commercial lit up zone.
I haven't looked into detail with that. Perhaps the development team can answer that question.
Okay, Peter, could you maybe answer that for us?
Well, again, I don't have it, but given I'm just hearing about it right now, it's common right now for all lighting and parking lots to have sort of a low E design to them, and we'll make a note of that comment right now to ensure that our design team incorporates that type of lighting into the project. And with LED lights and so on now, it's a very acceptable way. We're doing it in the new public housing project in Squamish right now, and we can probably send you some photographs of what that looks like, but I think the neighbors will be very happy with it.
Okay, I understand that one. So on the lighting, is that something, Mark or Scott, that would be addressed through the DP process, or or is that just
DP and detailed design, not the zoning bylaw amendment.
So that would come back to us to have a look at, though.
Yeah, after the zoning bylaw.
Yes, I understand the time, but the specifics of the lighting and all that would come back to council for review for this part of the DP process.
Yes.
That's super. I guess the other thing, this would be to you, Peter. We talked in council here about trying to have it so it's Pemberton first, occupants for the building. Is there anything in the way you're looking at it that would happen?
Okay, I've been involved with a number of these BC housing type projects, mainly in Squamish, but same rules apply. Officially, when there's provincial and or federal funding for these projects, which is almost in all cases, the units are open to all residents of British Columbia. But in reality, what we do is have the local people get in first. I can just tell you right now, some of you may or may not be familiar with the new West Winds project in Squamish, which just opened up on April the 1st. And the same rules applied there, seniors housing. And I believe that 85% to 90% of the residents moving in are either Squamish or Sea to Sky region residents. And of the remainder, a number of them are folks that have come from the outside that were former residents of Squamish that have come back because they still have family here or something, and they couldn't find the accommodation before. So overwhelmingly, it's locals, and I know that the placement department for this project will be looking at that as well. And I believe the government are sympathetic to that situation. It's just that for their own purposes, they, in a financing situation, their rules state it has to be open to all British Columbians.
Okay, thanks.
Jesse, I see you got your hand up there. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Peter. Yeah, so that is the requirements for BC Housing. We also have in Squamish a tenant selection committee, and the way that they have worded their policy is that for our Squamish housing, applicants have to have lived in community for at least 1 year or have some type of connection to community, such as family or kids that are going to school or something like that. So we could certainly set up Pemberton's own tenant selection committee and develop a policy that's right for that, for Pemberton.
Who sits on that committee, Jesse?
So we have staff that work in different areas. So for instance, someone from our seniors program, someone from our homeless outreach program, someone, our housing coordinator and admin, someone from family and youth services. And then one spot we're hoping to fill at some point is to have a resident of one of our housing units sit on it as well.
Thank you.
Follow up one more, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead. Go back to the next, Councilor Nolan.
Also in the report, I see there was some concern about walkability from the site, saying that there were some issues with getting back and forth, but I live in the Glen, and I want to say that if the site has a sidewalk onto Laurel, basically Laurel all the way to downtown on Poplar Street, there's only about 100 feet that is not paved.
Right.
And certainly the community is doing a great job in the wintertime cleaning those routes. So I feel fairly comfortable that working with the Village of Pemberton, we can keep those routes certainly accessible for everybody. So I just want to point that out because the report did say that they'd see people on the highway. Well, unless they're going across the highway for other reasons, I can't see that there'd be an issue of people using that as access to downtown. So that's a positive, I hope. Thanks very much. Thanks for the presentation, Peter.
You're very welcome.
One of the biggest concerns I've heard from the community is the traffic flow and safety. Has there been anything done for assessments or studies to resolve those potential issues?
Casey?
Yeah, Peter, if I may. So as mentioned previously, and thank you very much for the question, we did retain the transportation engineer to assess the site and develop a report. I know much of the conversation earlier has been around parking and the parking analysis, but as part of that report, which of course formed part of our submission, also looks at trip generation. And it was determined by the transportation engineer that it would actually be a very low trip generation that would be developed by this project. So there is not a great concern from an independent, the independent engineer's report on traffic congestion being caused by this project.
Good. Any other questions? Question around the parking a little bit, and you know, when we look at the number that was come up with was done through that sort of independent review that you referenced.
Yep.
And I guess this is a question to Casey and or Peter. You know, there's more land to be had there. Parking issues are one of the primary concerns. Is there not more available spots on site where we, if we need be, can increase that parking allocation?
Thank you very much for the question, Mayor Redmond. Absolutely, we are willing to work with our transportation engineer and staff to explore that should staff determine that it would be appropriate to include for some more parking. As previously mentioned, our engineer and what Jesse alluded to earlier found that if we were to meet the bylaw, for example, that the project would be overparked. We often see that in lower income projects. If we look at the bylaw, that simply put, the folks who will be living here do not have the same car ownership rate as what you may find in the market. So as I mentioned earlier, we took the engineer's recommendation and we actually added additional stalls to that number. But we are more than open to working with staff on reviewing that further and open to potentially changing the proposed number at this stage.
Awesome. Thanks for the answer. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor.
Nobody else, just one more question and then probably through to Jesse or Mark. A lot of people were concerned that the commercial area was going to include, I've seen everything from grocery stores to all kinds of retail outlets, but my understanding of reading it, it's for social services and potentially daycare. And that's pretty much everything that's on the commercial core. I just want to confirm that.
I'll let Casey confirm that, but I will add that since we are doing a comprehensive development zone, we can put within that zone exact permitted uses.
Okay, so
To
we
be
could,
allowed if
we
if
could
you
exclude
certain areas
So
or
people
certain services.
wouldn't have to feel uncomfortable that a
Yeah.
coffee shop or grocery store or fast food was going in there.
Yeah, if you wanted to go down that route.
Okay, super.
But I'll let development team answer that. Just for the exact commercial tenants per se.
Jesse, do you want to, and so obviously that what we're illustrating now is the two future potential commercial CRUs, but Jesse, do you want to speak to the balance of the proposed main floor?
Yeah, so we would essentially be relocating our Pemberton office space into the commercial ground floor. So right now it's located on Astor Street, as well as we have what we call a program house there. Again, it's just another commercial unit on Astor Street. That's just programming space, big open group room, small family counseling area, kitchen for cooking classes. That would be the type of social service space we would want to accommodate on the ground floor.
So follow up on that, would that allow for community groups within the community to be able to meet and have activities within this?
Yeah.
Like, is there a shared space concept for that?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have group room space and areas that we can essentially rent out. In our office in Squamish, we kind of designed it in the same fashion so that we have group space that's easily accessible to the front door and space that we can easily rent out to any type of group or other nonprofit that wanted to use it. We'd be happy to accommodate.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's it, Mark.
Go ahead, Councilor Tim.
I would just like some more information on the flood hazard and drainage. So when we have heavy rain events, this property is underwater. And so I'm wondering, would it still drain into the Arm Canal or once half of it is filled, or how do you see that working? And then the other question I have is, if the commercial area floods, which, in the next 30 years, it's likely to, would all the residents in those suites have to have alternative accommodation?
Yeah, do you want me to?
I can answer that question. So
Yes, okay.
thank you very much for the question. With respect to the first one, as alluded to earlier, we've retained the services of a professional civil engineer. Part of his scope of work is to develop a stormwater management plan. So the idea there is a site grading plan that would be appropriate, that would draw water towards a management system so that it's not all rushing off into the municipal system. In other words, there's a proposed storm detention tank, which would then capture the water on site, and it would then control the flow, the outflow, to a manageable level so that it doesn't overburden the existing system and flood the system. So that's all being looked into. A proposal has been put forth. And of course, as the design evolves, we'll be looking into further details, of course. And of course, one of the concerns that we had from the neighbors is if you put a building here, aren't you going to direct the water away from the building and into our yards? Again, very valid concern, all of which gets captured into that review by the professional engineers. To your latter question with respect to the flood hazard, again, we retain the services of Frontier Geotechnical and a geophysicist with respect to the flood hazard and the flood construction level. In addition to making sure that the habitable space, i.e. The residential spaces, are above a certain level, there are a whole other host of design measures recommended in that report that we will need to adhere to. So to answer your question, no. In the future, should there be an event and the commercial space flood, the individuals living in the upper stories they would still have access to their home. They would not be removed from their homes.
The rules around the flood management also dictate, and this building will be in compliance with those, that a lot of your mechanical system and so on has to be above the flood construction level.
That's
So
right.
they are all protected. In the event of a flood, they're not ruined, and the electrical systems, all of those things. The other thing that will be in the report of the design is that in the event of a flood, you raised a valid point that any water that would accumulate on the site in a flood situation would have to be directed towards the drainage canal and that kind of thing. We're talking about flood water, not storm water. And so those are common sense measures that the province of British Columbia has in their guidelines for these engineers, and will be in compliance with all of it.
I will add the village consultant engineer is reviewing the stormwater management plan, as well as Pemberton Valley Dyken District is reviewing the application as well.
And maybe one of you two, could you speak to the pre and post development flow requirements on any development?
Sure, yeah, I can handle that and add a little bit more to this discussion. I was actually speaking to Kevin Clark with the TDD on a separate issue to discuss this project briefly. So yeah, it's a requirement of all projects, all development projects in the village of Pemberton that post-development flows, so that's flows outside of the property, must match pre-development flows. It's pretty standard across the board in British Columbia. So that's what the stormwater management plan handles, is making sure that the same volume of water that flowed off the property pre-development is what flows off post-development at the same rate. It's an important detail as well. And speaking to more of the floodwater issues, that's true that when we get a significant flood, that property does get inundated. That is more of an issue with the Arn Canal drainage system, more of a wider issue that the whole region has to cope with and find a solution to, that this site can't solve on its own, essentially.
And question for any of the Sea to Sky team, some of the projects you've done, for instance, Squamish lately would be an example because they have FCL challenges as well. Have there been similar exemptions or construction development?
The design that we're proposing here is very much like most of downtown Squamish. And we're all in a flood zone here, and so it's second story up for residential. Commercial is designed on parking on the bottom floor. Again, all the electrical and mechanical items are up off the floodplain, and large developments for townhouses and so on have. This is not a large development in our case, but other ones, they have floodways designed into them so that in the event of a flood, there's a way that the flood water can drain away, after the storm or the dikes are repaired or whatever it is, so the water can drain away. And I know the engineer that is doing the work on this project, and he's very familiar with these types of things, and he'll ensure that that's the way it is on this particular project as well. And it will be reviewed by your staff, I'm quite sure. And as you say, the Dyking District and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Just last question, the stormwater retention that you've talked about, will you be able to use that for irrigation purposes?
I don't have the answer to that one on me right now. I would have to check in with our civil engineer and see if that is a possibility. It has not been contemplated to date, but thank you for the question.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions?
Its primary purpose is to slow down the rate of discharge off the property. And so it holds the water for a period of time and it gently releases it after the storm passes. That's kind of the theory behind it.
I was just looking at some way for if there's going to be a fair bit of landscaping. I see there's lots of trees and shrubs that you're looking at, that if we could reduce the amount of local water consumption and use some of that for irrigation would be nice, but I'll go with what Jesse says and we'll see how that comes out later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, Jesse, Jay, did you have anything you want to throw in before I thank all of you for joining us?
No, thanks, Mayor Richmond. It's great to be here, and certainly my team has provided a significant and incredible level of information. And thank you all for listening and your questions.
Well, thanks to all of you for joining us and providing all that clarity. I'm sure you'll be listening. We'll remove you from the panel now as we carry on our conversation. But thanks so much for your time today. And all the
Thank you.
work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no more questions, I'll open the table to thoughts and comments. Anybody like to lead off?
I think the presentation we had in the team presenting, I had a list of questions. They've answered every question except the irrigation one. I think those questions that I had were ones that came from the community and people that were concerned about issues. I think the height elevation 4.8 to 4.9 feet, although it's above what we have in town right now, we have a bunch of 4-story buildings in town right now. I think 4.9 feet to be able to provide 63 units for people that are really needing a place to live in our community and going forward is hopefully something that in a public hearing we can convince people, or they can convince us as a council that it's reasonable to put that in. And other than that, I'm really pleased with the package that was presented today.
Thanks, Paul. Who's next?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable. I think it's important that this kind of thing go ahead. I think it's a good location. I think the style of building design they have is all right. I think we've received a lot of support from the public. So all that said, I just have real concerns about building such an important asset in a manner that we know is really, really vulnerable. I just think we know at some point we're going to have a really big flood in here. And this is where we're putting our affordable housing. And I don't think, I'm hearing that the geotechs have these plans and whatnot, but I really just, I feel like the backflow on the Yarra Canal, that doesn't go down until basically the lake goes down. And the idea that we can hold all that water there and slowly release it into the Yarra Canal, I feel really uncertain about that. And I feel really uncertain about all those vulnerable families having to deal with that. So it's a major concern for me. And I think if we are building climate resilient communities, we stop building vulnerable assets. That's the first thing we do. So yeah, for me, it's a real dilemma. The other thing is that we have had a lot of feedback from the public talking about the scale and massing of the building. And I think they're right. I think it does not really reflect the context of the site. I'm just thinking of 5-story building 3 meters from the highway. It's like, I think it's a bit of a red herring. So I feel a little bit frustrated that now we have time constraints, and if we ask for anything else, we might lose the whole project. I just think it's the wrong way to look at that. I would like to see more flexibility and more willingness to listen to the people that do have concerns, because we've heard both sides. But I don't think any significant steps have been taken to address the massing of the building. So yeah, for me, it's a bit of a dilemma. I'm very supportive. I see major concerns.
Else?
I think they've done a lot of comprehensive research and provided a lot of good answers on this. And this is something the community has wanted. I do struggle with the massing right on the highway too, and the visuals. I think we simply don't have a lot of options for other places, non-flooding, where we can do this. I like that it is going to be very walkable and accessible for the community. I think the need's incredible for it right now, like very much so, and the social service that will be provided there. It is good to hear that the traffic won't be as much of an issue, I guess, because it's more offices. That's still where I have some of my concerns though, is just the volume. Although being walkable and lower income, maybe it won't be as bad as we're concerned it might be. And yeah, I hope we don't lose this opportunity for the community as much as it's definitely a struggle on some levels.
Awesome, thank you. Suzanne, did you want to have a go?
Yeah, I think, you know, when I first started on council here in 2018, we heard a lot from the community about the need for affordable housing. I think this project will help with that. I hear the concerns from the other councillors, but I feel that the project managers have done a lot to answer those questions and those concerns. And I think that we don't have a lot of options when it comes to land, where to put these sorts of projects. It is close to the facilities. It'll be close to the bus stop. I mean, the community asked for affordable housing, and here we are with an amazing deal with BC Housing backing us. I feel this project should move forward in its current state.
Thank you. So my thoughts are, in terms of the location, pretty much what others have said. We're limited in terms of our locations. Is it the perfect location? No. Is it a good one? I very much think so. Do we have any or a lot of other options? No. We went through that process, and the land base is shrinking. If anything, we're not going to get more options coming up. The available land is going away. So I think the location is right, and we're trying to do our best to make sure it fits the location. Appreciate Councillor Antonelli's concern around the flooding and building a vulnerable situation. I feel the way it was addressed thus far, and will hopefully continue to be addressed, and the way we look at it, is that there is a recognition that there will be a flood. It was stated in the report within the next 30 years, and planning for that is in place. I agree we need to build climate resilient developments, but I think part of that means that it's not necessarily building up on a hillside. It's building with the knowledge of what is to come, where the water will flow. We have that information. Can we? What are new building techniques and ways that we can manage that? And I think Casey did a good job answering to what would happen in the event of a flood, and that folks would not be in a vulnerable situation. They'd be cared for. But a legitimate concern, and one that I think we need to keep our eye on throughout the development process to make sure that all these things are in place. Like others, I feel that the majority of the concerns from stormwater management, pre and post flow, take care of that. Civil engineer, those things are being looked after. Drainage, snow storage, traffic is being looked at as well through the Ministry of Transportation, which I don't think was mentioned, through the Ministry of Transportation referral. To me, it leaves us with the two big issues that have come up over and over. One is parking and concern from local residents that it's going to overflow into their neighborhood. I think the proponents have heard that loud and clear. Answer to my question was potentially there is room on the site to provide more parking if that's what is felt is needed. So I think that is a solvable or a discussable challenge. So to me, it comes down to what everyone else has said, the size of the building and whether it belongs there. It certainly would represent a change. The density in that area is that's becoming sort of the denser part of town, and to a certain degree. I think that really that's the single biggest thing that's sort of at hand here with this project, and I think we should put it to the public even more. And I think that means carrying on with the process. Everything else I think can be dealt with through development permit processes, through discussions here, through staff work with the applicants. we will continue to make sure this is a thoughtful development if it moves forward and it addresses all the neighbors' concerns and the residents' concerns. To me, it comes down to the size of this, and we need the community to weigh in on this. That will happen leading up to and through the public hearing process. We'll hear from folks. The applicants will have heard from folks as to what they bring forward for first reading and then what will go to public hearing. So I think they're listening very carefully, and what they bring forward will represent what they've heard today and what they continue to hear. So I think it's time to put it into the public's hand and carry on with the process and have them tell us. It's a big decision. We all know the need is there. I feel like the need is there more than we even realize. I'm grateful to be comfortable. And so it's not I know the need is not always seen. It's not always visible in our community, but we know it's there, probably more, and it's more than we can see. So we need to measure that. We need to measure the value of this project to the community. Affordable housing crisis is just that. It's a crisis. People cannot afford to live in this community. We need to start filling holes in that spectrum of housing. And this is a really big piece in 63 units. So I think it comes down to the community good, the future of the community and what we can provide and what people feel from as residents in terms of how that fits into that spot. So I'm happy to move along in the process, have the applicants work with staff on an application to come for first reading, and then send it out to the public to hear from the public to really get a sense of what they would like to see on this project. So those are my thoughts. And with that in mind, in terms of the schedule, if we go forward with that process, I would like us to schedule a special meeting in August to make sure the process has time to happen and get to third reading before an election. I don't think it would be fair to drop this on a brand new council after the work that's gone on at this table. I don't think it would be fair. I feel it's our responsibility to keep working on this, and it could jeopardize the project. So I would be in favor of seeing us hold a special meeting in August.
If that's a
Regular
motion,
meeting for the schedule.
Yeah, just add a regular meeting.
that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, well, why don't we start with the first part, because that would come second, I believe.
Page 23.
So we had the two options. The first option, or open to other options as well, but the ones that were presented were that the committee of the whole recommend to council that staff be directed to continue with the processing of the application substantially in the form submitted in the application submission, and that subject to a complete and thorough application process, proposed application be brought to council for consideration of first reading to amending the zoning bylaw. The second would be recommend to council do not proceed in its current form, and that staff be directed to request an amendment to the proposed application to align more closely with the guidance of the OCP and development permit areas. Would somebody like to make one of those motions or another one? Councillor Noble.
I'll move option 1.
Seconded by Councillor Craddock. Further discussion? I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then with regards to adjusting the council meeting, a motion that we schedule a regular council meeting in the month.
I think the committee recommend to council that the regular meeting schedule be amended to include a meeting on Tuesday, August 30th. Yeah.
Staff feels that's the best date to make it happen. Okay,
Yeah.
moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Discussion. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Just so that you know, we'll bring a report back on June 7th to make that amendment.
Awesome. Any final comments before we? Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Mark. We'll be seeing you both soon on this one. Thanks. Absolutely. Much appreciated. Thank you. And if there's nothing else, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn committee to whole. Moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Take a 5-minute break before we go in camera.
Doing good.